Today I'm starting a new project, a travel memory book. It will take several videos before the memory book is finished, but today I'll show you how I did the base construction. My memory book is made with dies from Tonic Studios, and I used the We Are Makers mini Cinch for the binding, which is not visible from the outside. My name is Julia, and I'm an enthusiastic card maker and paper crafter from Austria. Welcome to my channel, Julie's Kreativschatzkiste. These are the main dies I will be using for my memory book. It's the Keepsake Bookmaker Base Creator. They contain a lot of pieces which are really helpful for creating a memory book. For the decoration of my book I will be using Tonic magazine issue number 3, The Adventure Begins. There are a lot of travel themed stamps, dies, stencils and papers included in this magazine, and they are perfect for decorating my travel memory book. Today you will mostly be seeing the papers, but the dies for the decoration will play a major role in future videos for the memory book. I'm starting by creating my pages. I use a 220 GSM paper for them. When you look at the dies in the die set, there are two different kinds of dies. On the one side there are some which have cut lines all the way around. They cut complete rectangles. And they will be used for decorating the pages later on. And then there are some others. They have one side which is not cutting. These are for the creation of the pages, and you can just leave as much paper as you want on the left side where it's not cutting to create your binding of the memory book. The great thing is that the die set includes this page dies in different sizes. So you can either make different sizes of memory books or you can use them for the inside as well. For my memory book today, I used the largest of the page dies for my cover. For the inside pages of my memory book, I used the second largest page dies. The largest page die fits perfectly on an A4 page. As you see, I put the die on the paper in a way that the line that is not cutting is in the middle of the page. That way I have a lot of paper left for the construction of my spine. I cut that out 4 times because I want to make my cover very sturdy. When I'm done with cutting out these pages, I cut away the paper I don't need. But before I'm progressing with the cover construction, I made the inside of the book first, so my pages, because I wanted to know how big my cover has to be, particularly the spine, how thick the spine has to be. So I took out the second largest page die, so without a cutting line on one side, and I cut out my pages. The die fits perfectly on an A5 page, but it's very important that you take care that on the side where it doesn't cut, so on the spine side, there is some space for your binding. In my case of a cinch binding, I need about 1 centimeter, not that much. As the die is not cutting on all sides, I need my scissors and extend the cut lines, so to say, so that I have a straight line on my binding side. For my book I made 16 pages. However, 2 of these pages will not be used with the cinch binding, but I will construct fold outs from the cover on the front and on the back with them. So these 2 I put away together with my cover pages. Then I have to align my book pages. The side with the spine is now differently cut depending where I put the die on the paper. So I try to align them that they all have the same measurements, especially on the spine side. The way that I do that is that I try to find the page with the smallest width, and I took that page as a guideline. The width of that page is where I aligned all the other pages in my trimmer. And then I cut all the spine sides so that in the end all pages have the same measurements. Next, my mini cinch comes into play. I had to try out a little bit where to align my paper in the mini cinch to get the holes exactly where I want them. As you see, I had to sacrifice one page where I did it wrong in the beginning. However, the second try was actually very good. My goal was to make the holes in a way that the space on the bottom and on the top of the holes was about the same. There's a ruler on the mini cinch, and for starting out cutting the holes, I aligned my paper at 3/4 of an inch on this ruler. I marked this spot also with a washi tape, so that I'm quicker with aligning all my pages then. The mini cinch has 6 holes, so I cannot punch all my holes at once. The way that works with the mini cinch is that you cut out the first 6 holes, then you move the paper downwards and you have this little tab on the side, which you can put into the second last hole. And that way it aligns perfectly for the rest of the holes. And this process I did with all my 13 papers. Then I used this spiral binding here in dark blue. I put it on the side of the cinch, and then I placed my papers into the spiral binding. Normally when doing an entire book with a mini cinch you have to take care of the order of the papers, because the back cover should be on top of the papers. In this case, as it's just the inside with all the papers looking the same, it doesn't matter. My spiral binding was a bit too large, so I cut it off with pliers. In the final step, you put the papers on the spiral binding on the back of the mini cinch, and you press the spiral binding together so that the paper cannot get out anymore. So now the inside pages are finished. I just turn around the top page and put it to the back, because that way the seam between the front and the back of the spiral binding is hidden and it's easier to attach to my book. Alright, now that we know how thick our spine will be, we're coming back to our covers. These are the dies I cut out for the covers. Now I'm going to adjust them so that they are a perfect cover for our memory book. First, I have to extend the cut lines the dies made at the top and the bottom of the page, so that they are aligned and there's no bump in my paper. Next, I make a pencil mark at about the place where the spiral binding ends. And this is exactly the place where I make a score line with my trimmer, because there I will make my first fold in my cover. I also reinforce this score line with my bone folder. Next, I put a ruler on my spine, so that I can make a straight line, and there I make another pencil mark. This should be about the thickness of the spine. These measurements don't need to be exact. It's better to be generous and leave a bit more space than needed. Nevertheless, I wrote the measurements down because I will need them for the other 4 parts of my cover. The height of my spine is about 2.2 centimeters or 7/8 of an inch. And this corresponding fold lines I make on another one of the 4 pieces I cut out for the cover. Then I check again if my papers fit inside the cover, and they fortunately do. So as mentioned, I did exactly the same fold lines on one of my other papers I cut out for the covers. When I put these 2 pieces together, you start seeing the book. At this point, I then realized that I don't need 2 fold lines, I just need 1 for the spine, and I have to cut the paper at the second fold line we made, because only then I can make a nice book and it looks nice from the outside. But nevertheless, I have the spine doubled and can glue the pieces together there. And that's exactly what I do here. As soon as I have cut these pieces, the front and the back of my book, I glue them together on the spine. Now it really looks like a book already. In the next step, I want to make my fold outs. These are the 2 dies I cut with the second largest die, so with the same die I cut my pages out. I want them to fold out on the front and on the back, so I need a fold line here as well to make a glue tab. The size of the glue tab is not that important as long as it's more than 0.5 centimeter, because then there's enough tab to glue it down to my paper. For making the fold line, I align my trimmer with the decoration stitched line in the paper. Just slightly to the right of the stitched line, there I make my fold line. But before I glue my fold outs down, I need some piece of twine or ribbon for the closure of my book. So I cut 2 equal sized pieces. I estimate that they are about 30 to 40 centimeters long. I would recommend you to make them longer in the first place. You can always cut them down. They're too long. So these ribbons are getting glued on the inside of my covers, but below the fold outs that we just made. In order to strengthen my front and my back cover, and in order to hide the glue tab as well as the ribbon, I used the other 2 papers which we cut out in the beginning from the largest page die. I made exactly the same fold line, although I cut the spine part a smidge smaller than the original spine, so about 2.1 centimeters. Next I use red liner tape to glue my ribbon on the inside of the front and the back cover. Position-wise, I tried to find the middle. I used the same red liner tape for my glue tab of my fold-out pieces. When gluing down my fold-out pieces, I have to glue it on the inside of the back and front cover, and I try to align the outer edges of both. Perfect, 1 fold-out is done. So all we need now is to cover up our ribbon and our glue tab. And this is done by the piece we just cut before with the smaller spine. It is simply aligned with the other piece in the same size, so the back piece of the memory book, and glued down. In order to make the fold line fold nicely, I enforce it with my bone folder. The process on the front cover is exactly the same. Glue down the ribbon, glue down the glue tab of our fold out on the inside of the front cover, and cover it all up with our big piece again. So far so good. Our base is almost finished. The thing that's left now is to glue in our pages with the spiral binding. But before we do that, I have to cut some decorative matting layers, because the back side, where I glue down the pages, will be visible afterwards, and so I have to decorate it with paper now. So I browsed through the papers that were included in the Tonic magazine issue number 3. All of them are really beautiful, by the way. And I chose this one. Then I took out my die set again. And the die that I'm needing now is the second largest of all the dies. This is a die that cuts on all 4 corners, so it's not a page die. And if you watch carefully now, you will realize that I changed my mind about the paper. I chose a different one. If I cut out this piece, it fits perfectly on the largest page die, with a little margin around. And as you can see, I plan to glue on the pages here, by just gluing on the last of the pages. I have then cut another one of the dies from the same paper, but one smaller size. And this will be the decorative layer for the last page in my pages. Most of the decorative layer on which I glue the pages will not be seen afterwards. So I did a little trick. I chose one of the smaller rectangles and I cut it out of the middle of my paper, because nobody will ever know that there is a hole in my paper here. The remaining work is pretty easy. I glue down my rectangle with the frame cut out of it, and then I glue down my pages by gluing down the back of the last page to my back cover. I use quite a lot of glue for this in order to make sure that it really sticks well. When gluing it down, I also take care that my pages are aligned with the decorative layer I just glued in. That's pretty easy to do actually. So this is our base construction of the cover, or the spiral binding, which is not visible from the outside, finished. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like or a comment. And please also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already done so. There will be more videos in this series for decorating the pages inside, with pockets, belly bands, fold outs and dies of course. I hope you will join me for these videos as well. Servus, until next time!